Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're doing something really cool, kind of like a special masterclass. This one's for all of you learning English who really want to get a handle on the news. We're going to take a massive, totally chaotic breaking news story, and I mean really break it down. We'll figure out the vocabulary and see how the whole thing is put together, word by word. Ready? Let's jump right in.
So imagine you flip on the TV and you hear this. It's an absolute bombshell of a statement. It's unconfirmed, it's dramatic, and it just instantly throws an entire region into complete chaos. This is our starting point, a perfect storm of information moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
When news is breaking this fast, with missiles in the air and world leaders making these huge claims, it's so easy to feel lost. But here's the secret. The real key to understanding what's actually going on, it's all in the specific words they choose to use. And that's exactly what we're going to focus on today. All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at a region on edge to get a clear timeline of events. Then, we'll dive into the vocabulary of conflict. After that, we'll see how reporters are connecting the timeline to build the story. Then comes the really interesting part. 2 narratives, 1 event. And finally, we'll wrap it all up and give you your news analysis toolkit. Sound good? Okay, first things first. Before you can analyze any news story, you have to build a timeline. Before we even touch the language, we've got to get the facts straight. What happened first? What came next? Let's map it out. So let's walk through this together. You can see just how fast everything spirals out of control, right? It all kicks off in the morning with these joint airstrikes. Then, bam, by midday, you've got the US president making this absolutely massive claim that the supreme leader is dead. Iran, of course, hits back hard in the afternoon, calling it psychological warfare. And by the time we get to the evening, things have gotten so much worse. Iran is launching its own strikes on several countries. It's just a classic domino effect, a perfect example of how one single action can spark a massive fire. All right, now that we have the timeline down, we can start building our first skill, spotting the essential vocabulary. In any conflict, you'll see journalists and politicians using these very specific words that carry a ton of meaning. Let's look at 3 really important ones from this story.
So our first word is regime. Now, technically, it just means a government. But in the news, especially in English, it's almost always used to talk about a government that's seen as, well, not very democratic. It definitely has a negative feel to it.
And this is a perfect illustration of that point. See how Trump uses it here? He's not just saying overthrow the government. By using the word regime, he's suggesting that the government is illegitimate, that it's something the people should rise up against. The word itself becomes a weapon in a political argument. Next up, we have retaliation. This word is at the absolute heart of any conflict. It's that idea of action and reaction. You hit me, I hit you back. One side attacks and the other side attacks back in response.
And here we see that word in action. The report says Iran has retaliated. That one word immediately tells you that Iran's attacks didn't happen out of nowhere. They were a direct response to those earlier US and Israeli airstrikes we saw on the timeline.
Our final keyword is preemptive. This is a really strategic word. A preemptive strike is when you attack first, but you justify it by claiming the other side was about to attack you. So you're basically saying you had to act to prevent a future threat. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Look at this second half of that sentence. Israel calls its attack preemptive. But look what the BBC does. As a neutral news source, they add a super important detail, without producing evidence of an imminent threat. So what they're doing is, they're reporting what Israel claimed, but they're also letting the audience know that it's just a claim, not a proven fact. That's good journalism. Okay, so we've got the timeline, we've got the keywords. The next skill is all about understanding how journalists stitch these pieces together to make a story that makes sense. They use these specific connector words that act like bridges, guiding you from one event to the next. So, think about a news story like it's built in 4 basic steps. First, something happens. Then, someone responds to it. That response has a consequence. And all of this is happening within a bigger picture, a broader context. The connector words we're about to look at are the glue that holds these 4 blocks together. Honestly, this chart is your secret weapon for understanding the news. When you hear following the launch of, you know what's coming next is a direct result of that launch. If you see in response, you know we're about to hear the other side's reaction. Led to shows you a clear cause and effect, and meanwhile tells you that, hey, while all this is going on, something else important is happening at the same time, making things even more complicated. Once you see these patterns, you can follow the logic of pretty much any news story.
All right, this is probably the most advanced skill we're going to cover. We're going to look at the exact same events, but we're going to see how they're described using two totally different kinds of language. First, the language of a political leader, which is designed to persuade you. And second, the language of a news organization, which is designed to inform you.
Okay, just look at the difference here. It is night and day. On the left, you've got Trump's language. It's all emotion, right? It's absolute. It's not just an attack. No, it's epic fury. The result? A tremendous success. And the enemy isn't just an opponent. They're one of the most evil people in history. This is pure persuasion. Now look over at the right. How does the BBC talk about the exact same event? It's a wave of airstrikes. When they talk about that huge claim, what do they say? If confirmed. They're not afraid to admit they don't know everything, using phrases like, it isn't clear if, and they stick to what they can prove. Satellite images show. See? One side is trying to sell you a story. The other is trying to report the facts. Two very different goals, and two totally different ways of using words.
So there you have it. Congratulations. You've just learned how to look at a super complex news story like a real expert analyst. Seriously, you've just picked up a powerful set of tools to see past the headlines and truly understand how these stories are built. So let's just quickly recap what's in your new toolkit.
Here it is, your 4-step toolkit. It's simple, but it's powerful. First, you spot those keywords. Second, you trace the timeline using the connectors. Third, you compare the language. Is it emotional or is it factual? And fourth, and this is the most important one, you always question the motive. Just ask yourself that one simple question. Is this person trying to inform me or are they trying to persuade me?
And that really leaves us with one final thought. In a world with so many competing stories, when you can see not just what is being said, but how it's being said, well, that gives you a huge advantage. You stop being just a passive listener and you become an active critical thinker. The language isn't just noise anymore, it's a map. And by learning to read that map, you get that much closer to finding the truth for yourself.
喜欢这种学习方式，欢迎订阅我的频道，让我们一起用下一个10分钟，把商业英文变简单。